Pixar gave us legends. Woody, Buzz, Jessie, we know them by heart. We know their stories, their fears, and their endings, but there are others. The ones who fought alongside them, the ones who saved him, the ones who were there from the beginning and one simple day disappeared without a farewell scene, without an explanation, without even a background cameo, as if they had never existed. Today we are going to talk about them, about what happened to them, and in some cases about what is probably happening to them right now while you watch this video. This is what happened to every lost Toy Story character. Lotso. Let's start with the warlord of Pixar's history. When we see him for the first time in Toy Story 3, he seems harmless. He smells like strawberries. He has that grandfather voice from the southern United States. He runs Sunnyside as if it were a retirement home for toys. It sounds good. It even sounds cute. And then you realize that he put Buzz in a plastic prison and turned the toddler room into a war zone. Lotso was not just bad, he was evil in a way that Pixar rarely showed so directly. They abandoned him, replaced him with an identical Lotso, and that rotted him inside until he decided to rot everything he touched. But here comes the part that hurts the most. In the incinerator scene, when the toys are about to burn, Lotso could have changed everything. He had the emergency button within reach. He could have saved them. He could have chosen differently. He did not. He left them there and ran away. His reward. A random truck driver tied him to the front of a garbage truck. And that is not just a funny image to close his story. That is a condemnation. Lotso is going to spend the rest of his existence tied up without being able to move his arms or his legs, with mud and bugs hitting his face every time the truck accelerates, without being able to talk to anyone, without being able to move, surrounded by broken toys that he probably hates. And toys in bad condition deteriorate. They slowly fall apart towards the end. Lotso is going to be just a head with some plush and maybe an arm, until he ends up in an incinerator or buried under tons of garbage, alive, conscious, unable to do absolutely anything. That is why he does not appear in Toy Story 4, not a cameo or a reference. Pixar discarded him just like Daisy discarded him. He smelled like strawberries and ended up rotting. Mr. Spell. Next is the classmate on wheels who always had the right answer and never missed a letter. Do you remember Mr. Spell? Mr. Spell was the smart toy, digital voice, screen, moved on its own, even sang. In Toy Story 2, he returned. He helped Buzz decipher Woody's message. He coordinated rescue missions, always organized, always useful, always there and then nothing. Without a farewell scene, without a mention, without even a second of screen time in the following movies. The most solid theory is that they donated him to Sunnyside before Andy grew up, and it makes sense. An educational spelling toy does not have much of a future when the owner is 10 years old and has already passed that stage. For Andy, Mr. Spell stopped being relevant long before middle school ended. There is an interesting detail in an episode of Forky Asks a Question where he appears briefly, which suggests that he indeed ended up in Sunnyside and then in Bonnie's collection. He is not dead. He is probably alive in some toy box waiting for someone who wants to learn to spell, which, being honest, does not sound so bad compared to what happened to Lotso. Chuckles. This is the one that hurts in a different way. Chuckles, the sad clown from Toy Story 3. His backstory is one of the most disturbing in the entire saga. He was one of Daisy's toys, the same girl who later abandons Lotso. When Daisy forgot them, Chuckles saw everything. He saw Lotso break inside, he saw him become what he became, and he chose a different path. Chuckles stayed quiet. He stayed sad, but he did not get corrupted. That moment where he tells Woody Lotso's story is one of the best moments in the entire trilogy. And when Toy Story 4 arrives, Chuckles is not there, not a flash, nor a second in the background. He completely disappeared. The most probable reason is a decision of respect by Pixar. The actor who gave him his voice, Bud Lucky, passed away, and Pixar has an unwritten custom. When an actor dies, the character retires with him because the voice and the character are inseparable. Or maybe he simply returned to the kitchen shelf where we saw him at the end of Toy Story 3, still watching, witnessing everything as he always was. Chuckles was never the center of anything, but without him, we would not understand Lotso. Toy Story 3 does not work the same. Wheezy. Wheezy was not just any toy. Wheezy is the reason Toy Story 2 exists. When Woody finds him on top of the shelf with his squeaker broken and his spirit destroyed, waiting to be thrown in the trash, that image starts everything. Andy's mom grabs him for the yard sale. Woody tries to save him, and from there the whole adventure takes off. Technically, Wheezy is responsible for Woody almost staying in a museum in Japan forever. And at the end of Toy Story 2, with his squeaker fixed, Wheezy sings a version of You've Got a Friend in Me that nobody expected and that many did not forget. That moment of unexpected glory. After that, never again. He does not appear in Toy Story 3. He does not appear in Toy Story 4. The most logical explanation is that Wheezy was a dog toy. Andy used him to play with Buster. He had a squeaker because that is what dog toys have. And when the squeaker broke, Buster stopped being interested in him. That is why he was left abandoned on the shelf. When they donated him, probably no family wanted him as a child's toy. Someone bought him thinking he was for their dog, and he ended up in that role, in some yard being dragged around by a Labrador. Wheezy's depression suddenly makes much more sense. The snake and the robot shark. Maybe you do not remember these two as much, but they were there. The snake and the robot shark were part of the early chaos of Toy Story. They appear in Andy's room, the green coiled snake with plastic hinges that looked like they were about to break. At any moment, the robot shark, with an aesthetic that looked like it came out of a 90s cereal commercial. Both were part of Andy's large collection, but the ending for each one might surprise you. The snake probably did not survive, the hinges were too fragile, a single sudden movement or a slight carelessness, and that was it. End of the snake. The shark had more of a chance, it had value, it was rubber, but it was essentially a pool bath toy. And when they donated it or sold it, it probably ended up exactly there in a bathtub, being the bath companion of some kid who never knew the story that that toy lived. Two characters who appeared in the earliest phase of the saga and who disappeared without anyone asking where they went. Etch. This one hurts, especially because Etch was truly useful. In Toy Story 1, Etch was the artist of the group, the surveillance system, the one who drew wanted posters before you finished asking, always with attitude and always in pixel mode. He returned in Toy Story 2, also helping in rescue missions, always drawing like a professional, and in Toy Story 3. But here is something concrete. Pixar confirmed in an official statement that Etch was one of the toys donated between the movies. It is not speculation, it is canon, and it makes sense within the story. Etch was a traditional toy, no voice, no movement of its own. For Bonnie, who grew up surrounded by more modern and expressive toys, Etch probably did not spark any special interest. What hurts the most is not that they donated him, it is that he did not even have a farewell scene. A character who drew rescue maps and mission posters, who was part of the team from the beginning and left without anyone looking at him. He is probably in a Goodwill right now, on a shelf waiting for someone to buy him and ask him to draw something. Lenny, Andy's smallest and most important blue binoculars. Lenny was the reconnaissance system of the group. If Andy was approaching, Lenny saw him first. If something strange happened outside the window, Lenny had it covered. Small, sharp, always attentive. In Toy Story 2, he returned. He helped Buzz track Woody. He showed that he was not just decorative, and then, like his small legs, he could not keep up. In Toy Story 3, he is not there. No flashback, no mention in the great inventory of toys that leave. He is simply not there. The theory is that they sold him in a yard sale, or he was left forgotten in some box. He was not the type of toy that Bonnie would have naturally chosen, and for a teenage Andy, some toy binoculars did not have much of a place. For a pair of eyes that saw everything, it is quite ironic that nobody saw when he left. Combat Carl. If there is a character who left with a bang, it is literally Combat Carl. Carl appeared in Toy Story 1 in the worst possible way, without lines of dialogue, without a partner, tied to a rocket by Sid and launched into the air to explode like fireworks. First casualty of Sid's toy apocalypse, but years later Carl returned in a certain way, in the short Toy Story of Terror. We meet several versions of Combat Carl, including one with the voice of Carl Weathers himself. There is even a Combat Carl Jr. who disappears before he can finish introducing himself. So Carl lives, just not the original one. The Carl from Toy Story 1 did not survive that explosion. He was the first to fall, and Pixar did not bring him back because there are deaths that do not have a redemption arc, but his legacy continued in new versions with new voices in the man who repeats himself. Sometimes that is the most a plastic soldier can hope for. Rocky Jibralter. If you needed to wash a toy car or face a toddler, Rocky was your guy. Built like a professional plastic wrestler with a permanent flexing pose, silent, effective, and without complaining. And then he disappeared from the franchise as if he had done a suplex out of frame and never returned. He is not in Toy Story 3. There is no trace of him in Bonnie's room in Toy Story 4. The most logical theory is that they donated him or put him away during Andy's cleanup, or gave him to Molly, or he was left in the attic, or Andy accidentally sat on him, and that was it. He was a wrestler. Wrestlers have premature endings. Stinky Pete. Old Pete, or as we would call him today, Pete the Cancelled. He appeared in Toy Story 2 as the wise father figure of Woody's group, calm, quiet, with that beard that said, "I have seen things." At first he seemed like the mentor everyone needed, and then from inside that blister pack, he became the villain. Pete did not want to be played with. He wanted to be admired behind glass in a museum forever. And when Woody decided to return with Andy, he exploded. He sabotaged the toys. He almost destroys the whole movie, literally, but karma works. In the final act, the airport employees put him in the backpack of a little girl who loves Barbie and wants to give him a complete makeover. They decorated him, they painted him, they covered him with accessories he would have never chosen, and with that, his value for any museum disappeared. Without Woody by his side, just decorated like a 7-year-old girl's art project, no collector wants him. Pete had to go through all the stages of grief, denial, bargaining, depression, and probably over time acceptance arrived because the girl grew up and he ended up on a shelf, still watching. Without the childhood memory of someone who loved him in their own way, which is deep down exactly what he always wanted, just not in the way he imagined. Sid's mutant toys, these were not villains. That is the first thing to understand. Sid's creations, the sewn and modified toys that lived in the shadows of his room, were not bad. They were survivors. Legs with a fishing rod, doll heads on spider legs, babies with mechanical claws. They did not speak, they did not scream, they just wandered through the shadows fixing each other, waiting for the next catastrophe. And when Woody needed help, when the time came to face Sid, they rose up like a horror movie army and gave that kid the scare of his life. After that, they never appeared again. They are not in Sid's garbage truck in Toy Story 3. There are no flashbacks and no mentions either. There are two theories about what happened. The first, after the trauma of seeing his toys speak to his face, Sid panicked and destroyed everything in his room. He threw everything away, broke everything, and those toys ended up in the trash or at a thrift store. The second theory is that Sid spent years in and out of psychiatric institutions. His mental state deteriorated. One day, he wrote a note that said, "The toys are alive, and what happened next, I leave to you to complete." Sid's mutants were innocent from the beginning. They just survived however they could. Hopefully, they found peace somewhere. The Barrel of Monkeys, the SWAT team of Andy's room, just more flexible and much more chaotic. In Toy Story 1, the monkeys were the solution to everything. Do you need a chain to rescue someone from a shelf? Barrel of Monkeys, they were the plastic equivalent of an emergency rescue team. And let's be honest, everyone at some point tried to hook them all together without any falling, and everyone failed at least once. They returned briefly in Toy Story 2, in Toy Story 3 missing. Not a pile of arms in a corner, nothing. Being a board game rather than a narrative toy, they probably ended up in the attic or were sold between movies 2 and 3 without drama, without a final scene. A team that defined group work, discarded without prior notice. Roly Poly Clown. Roly Poly was part of Andy's original squad. That classic round-bottom toy that does not fall over no matter how much you push it. He never spoke. He did not even have a moment in the spotlight. He was there in the background, wobbling with all his energy in the playtime scenes of Toy Story 1 and 2. His last appearance was at the end of a movie when the toys gathered to listen to Wheezy sing, and then nothing, neither in Toy Story 3 nor in Bonnie's room. But here is something most do not know. If you pay attention, at the end of Monsters, Inc., when Sully and Mike walk across the scare floor, you can see Roly Poly among the equipment. 1 second, if you blink, you miss it. But it is there. It is Pixar's classic way of saying that the worlds are connected, that a toy that disappeared from a story did not disappear from the universe. Roly Poly did not go anywhere. He just changed movies. Toy Story talks about friendship, about loyalty, about not letting go. But behind the scenes, sometimes Pixar lets go without saying anything. If you put together the interviews, the clues inside the movies, and the theories, the pattern appears on its own. The majority end up donated, sold, or put away in some box that nobody opened. Some had darker endings, and for a few, the fate remains a mystery.